Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Chanel. What unfolded around this reported strike is both dramatic and consequential. According to multiple open reports, Ukrainian forces targeted a large Russian-controlled oil hub that had recently been refilled and put back into operation. And the resulting attack produced massive explosions and fires that effectively wiped the site off the map. Eyewitness clips, satellite imagery shared by analysts, and official statements all point to a concentrated strike on tank farms, loading terminals, and associated logistics infrastructure that were actively storing large volumes of fuel at the time. The action fits into a wider campaign of long-range strikes on energy nodes intended to degrade an adversary's logistics and revenue streams. From the outside, the complex presented the textbook silhouette of a major oil hub. Rows of large cylindrical storage tanks, pipeline manifolds leading to loading racks for road, rail, and ship transfer, administrative and control buildings, and visible process equipment clustered near the heart of the site. Post-strike footage shows towering plumes of black smoke, burning pools of fuel, and successive secondary explosions as full tanks ignited and fed the inferno. A brutal cascade that is sadly typical when a depot holding millions of liters is penetrated while loaded. The visible damage included collapsed tank roofs, scorched containment berms, and widespread fire damage across transfer and pumping areas, making much of the site inoperable in a single event. Inside the facility, operations are comparatively simple but vital. Pumps, transfer piping, metering skids, valve fields, and the control room that sequences loading and unloading. That interior paragraph is short because when tanks are full and fuel ignites, there is little inside that can be salvaged quickly. Foam systems and hydrant monitors are designed to slow a fire, not to stop multiple high-energy impacts to breach tank shells. The immediate interior effect is loss of pumping capacity, ruined instrumentation, and contamination of systems that will need major repairs or replacement before normal throughput can resume. Ukraine today. Operationally, the hub functioned as a central node for storage and redistribution. When it was online, it allowed large volumes of crude or refined products to be buffered, blended, and sent onward to consumers, export terminals, or military users. Removing such a node from service has near-term logistical consequences. Fuel deliveries must be rerouted, tanker and rail schedules change, and military fuel lines can become stretched. Analysts and officials have pointed out that strikes of this kind create immediate supply shocks in affected regions and force the targeted side to disperse stocks or rely on more expensive and slower alternatives, increasing both cost and operational friction. Over the medium term, some capacities can be restored, but rebuilding storage, pumps, and metering infrastructure and recertifying tanks that have been heated and stressed takes weeks to months, depending on damage. On the defensive and safety side, major oil complexes are built with multiple layers of protection, spacing between tanks, impermeable bunds to catch spills, foam suppression systems, dedicated firefighting teams, and redundant pumps to isolate burning vessels. They are not, however, designed to be hardened military targets. When munitions with warheads in the several hundred kilogram class strike tanks that are full, the passive safety measures become overwhelmed. Foam can suppress a localized fire, but cannot combat multiple breaches or repeated reignition from secondary blast. Separately, at the military level, such sites may be within the envelope of air defense systems, but long-range standoff strikes or swarms can saturate defenses or exploit gaps, allowing damaging hits through. Early reporting suggests that the strike overcame local protective measures and produced cascading failures of the facility's safety systems. Part of what made this particular target so consequential were its unique selling points as an asset. It combined large storage capacity with lines into regional distribution and export networks, meaning it was both an economic node and a logistical enabler. Large storage hubs act as market stabilizers. They smooth out supply-demand imbalances by holding buffer stocks. And as military logistics hubs, they concentrate fuel where it can be quickly delivered to mechanized units, air assets, and support elements. Destroying or crippling such a hub, therefore, delivers a twofold effect. It disrupts civilian supply chains and creates immediate operational headaches for military planners who must now source fuel from other possibly more distant and vulnerable locations. There's also a psychological and signaling element. A successful deep strike shows reach, degrades confidence in protected rear area infrastructure, and forces adversaries to expend resources on dispersal, hardening, and redundant stockpiles. When commentators cite numbers like a 560 kg Warheads, they're describing the class of munitions used in long-range tactical strikes. A warhead of several hundred kilograms is sufficient to rupture tank shells and damage process equipment over a wide area. Open-source forensic analysts often use warhead weight ranges to infer possible missile or glide bomb families, but attribution for a specific munition type requires detailed wreckage analysis and classified intercept data. What is clear from imagery and reporting is that the impacts were powerful enough to cause multiple tank ruptures and sustained blazes, consistent with relatively large warheads or coordinated multi-weapon strikes. Readers and viewers should treat exact technical labels with caution unless confirmed by a formal analysis. The shorthand figure being used in headlines, for example, valuations like is $16 billion attached to the hub. It is unlikely to represent a single ledger entry, but rather an aggregation intended to convey scale, the merger of replacement cost, lost trade value, and downstream economic ripple effects. Real repair bills for physical plant will vary. Cleanup and environmental remediation adds another layer of expense, and the indirect costs from disrupted supply chains and higher fuel prices can dwarf the on-the-ground reconstruction budget. In short, the dollar figure is useful as a headline to convey magnitude, but should not be read as an exact accounting without further detail. Looking ahead, the immediate consequences are disruption to regional fuel logistics, temporary shortages in affected supply corridors, and a likely acceleration of efforts to harden, disperse, and camouflage remaining fuel stocks. And strategically, attacks that target energy infrastructure are a force multiplier. They impose economic costs, complicate military operations that rely on fuel, and create political pressure through fuel price volatility and service interruptions. For viewers trying to interpret what happened, the pragmatic takeaways are that destroying a filled fuel hub produces outsized physical and economic damage, that the big number headlines are shorthand for systemic impact, and that technical details about specific munitions should be treated as provisional until confirmed by forensic work. In conclusion, this strike demonstrates the growing role of long-range precision and drone-enabled operations in shaping the logistics battlefield. It shows how a single successful operation against a high-value node can ripple across markets and front lines alike. Whether the short-term gains for the attacker, disruption of supplies and signaling, translate into lasting strategic advantage will depend on how quickly the targeted side adapts by dispersing stocks, hardening critical facilities, and rerouting logistics. For civilians and analysts alike, the human, environmental, and economic costs are the most important measure of impact. And those costs are what drive the sobering headline numbers we've seen. If you want a follow-up dive, I can walk through the open source satellite imagery and the likely repair timelines next time.